This time around on CinemAttack, Blockbuster season begins with Larry's review of Iron Man 3. But that's not all, you've also got a review of The Great Gatsby from yours truly, as well as your recommendation domination and newsreel fixes. With Sean out of the picture this week, it's the dynamic duo of CinemAttack taking on two big summer hitters. And speaking of dynamic, my name is Side Smash.
I'm Flapperdoodle.
And it's time for my favorite film culture show, your favorite film culture show, everyone in the world's favorite film culture show. It's time for CinemAttack. Let's get it rolling, baby.
Tony Stark, played by Robert Downey Jr., has, been through a lot lately. After his little soiree in a gigantic wormhole, aka the events of the Avengers, he's been suffering from some severe anxiety attacks. Plus, he isn't sleeping at all, working on his Iron Man suits 24/7. And as you can guess, he's going through a little bit of sleep deprivation. And it certainly doesn't help that a new terrorist threat known as the Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley, is currently wreaking havoc all over the world. After a pretty idiotic public threat from Mr. Stark, the Mandarin, along with some fiery henchmen from Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce, demolishes Tony's home to literally bits and pieces. This leaves Tony's love, Pepper Potts, played by Gwyneth Paltrow, in serious danger, and Tony in who knows where. Once Tony realizes the danger he truly is in, he embarks on a journey of self-discovery, decision-making, and kicking the crap out of stuff with his buddy Colonel Rhodes, played by Don Cheadle. And all in time to put a star on top of the Christmas tree. Iron Man 3, if you haven't heard already, has been leaving fans divided. And this is due to many things, some of which are dipping into spoiler territory. But don't worry, we are going to have a separate video, and we're going to link you to it in the description and at the end of this video, where we will talk about the spoilers in greater detail. But since this is the official episode, we're going to stay away from spoilers and give you a fully clean review. Speaking of a clean review, let's start with the obvious positives. First off, the cast here is magnificent as always. Robert Downey Jr. is so good as this character of Iron Man. You can feel it within his performance that he truly has become this character 100%. He is able to stay cinematic and yet dramatic, all within the boundaries of the Tony Stark character, and I highly respect that. Gwyneth Paltrow and Don Cheadle have also mastered their characters to a science, and it shows through their performances. Ben Kingsley and Guy Pearce are also impressive as the new villains for this film, and they are definitely forces to be reckoned with. The plot here is a very different take on the Iron Man character, yet it's still as interesting as the first two films. It's interesting to dive into the psyche of this Iron Man Tony Stark character to see what's going on throughout his mind. And yes, the first two movies did include this. However, this third movie is much more dramatic, and thus we see more of Tony Stark personally than we ever have before. I think it's pretty set in stone at this point that Iron Man's life isn't exactly all lollipops and rainbows. In fact, I'd go as far to say that it's a bitch to be Iron Man. As the movie continues to throw curveballs at you, you start to truly learn how hard it is to be this character, and you truly begin to feel for the characters in this movie with all the struggles that they go through. The movie's twists and turns also keep the plot very engaging, and I definitely enjoyed watching the plot unravel. The writing is also very interesting, mainly because this script has Shane Black written all over it. As someone who very much enjoyed Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and Lethal Weapon, Shane Black is great at pushing for these concepts that he's striving for throughout this entire script. And really, the dialogue between these characters is very natural, and it sounds exactly as it should. He does a very good job of taking the franchise in more of a dramatic turn, and I highly respect it when a director can do that, even with a well-built-up franchise already like Iron Man. Shane Black is still able to subtly move it in a new direction, and I was highly impressed. The movie, as expected, is incredibly funny. However, I felt that sometimes the movie's humor more relied on the ideas of, wow, this character's really kick-ass, or wow, what in the world is going on right now? I mention this because the humor in Iron Man 1, and even in Iron Man 2 in some respects, came more from the characters and the writing. But here, I felt Shane Black relied a little bit too much on the execution of some scenes. I'm not saying that's a terrible strategy, and thankfully he does this sparingly. However, it's better to rely on the writing and the characters for the comedy more so than how you think a scene is going to play out. Please note, though, that the humor does take a bit of a backseat in this film, so this isn't a major issue. However, there is an issue I would like to mention. I feel the movie can slow down sometimes, and yes, this is necessary in a film like a superhero movie, but the thing is, when this movie slows down, at least in my opinion, it gets really slow, and sometimes near to a screeching halt. You could say this is just because of Shane Black's more dramatic elements in the film. I could totally agree with you there. However, I think the movie slows down mainly because of two things: pointless characters and pointless scenes. There are just some dramatic scenes in this movie that just don't feel as polished as the others, and this is mainly because they could have been cut from the film and nothing would have been affected at all. Actually, no. The characters and the scenes shouldn't be removed from the film, they should be replaced. If some of these characters or some of these scenes were rather replaced, I feel the movie could have been a lot more enjoyable in times where it just slowed down and it wasn't even entertaining. Thankfully, Shane Black knows when he's going too slow, and even though they do get abrupt pushes, the scenes get pushes nonetheless, which I did appreciate. But going back to positives, Iron Man 3's biggest strength is by far its action. Tons of these shots are just pure gold. The stakes just keep building from square one, the action scenes get more crazy, and they get more intense, and each one is a hell of a ride. And let me just say this on record, the final action scene in Iron Man 3, you know, the one with all the Iron Men, is one of the best action scenes I have ever seen in a superhero movie, period. Sure, it's a bit of a stretch, but I just had so much fun watching that scene, and I thought it was just so well done, I have to give Shane Black props for it. Now, even though I am going to delve more into this in another video that we are doing, I'm gonna mention two of the biggest things that people seem to be arguing about: the twist and the ending. Without spoiling either of them, I will give small comments on them. As for the twist, personally, I'm impartial to it. I thought it was interesting. I thought sometimes it was actually very hilarious, and even though it wasn't the route I would have taken, I thought they executed it fine. The ending is where my problems lie, mainly because I personally think it's a bit of a cop-out. The resolution is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just feel some of the steps the movie took to get to that resolution weren't very well thought out, and overall were unnecessary. So to sum up, Iron Man 3 is a fantastic ending to a great trilogy of superhero films. While it does slow down for me a little bit too much, and the ending has some questionable elements, I will say the rest of this movie is A+ Marvel material. The character of Iron Man is still fully represented here, even with a more dramatic story arc. Shane Black delivers on every account, giving us brilliant writing, great camera work, thrilling action, and splendid performances all around. Marvel, you should be very proud of having 3 awesome Iron Man films, and not only 3 awesome Iron Man films, but 3 awesome, successful Iron Man films. Iron Man 3 gets an A-. Also, before you go, stay after the credits. Trust me when I say that you're gonna love the Easter egg they have for you.
Now, before we move on to the next review, I want to point out to everybody that we do have a separate video up just for the spoilers of Iron Man 3. It's going to be me and it's Larry because, I mean, why not? It's a little bit unscripted, at least from my side. I'm pretty sure Larry has a whole thing planned out, but, yeah, you can find that video right here. It's right here. I'll keep it up for a little bit. And with that little thing out of the way, let's get to the next review.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. Hello, CinemAttack. This is Sean, I'm in London. I just got out of the Opium, it doesn't matter. It's theater in London where Iron Man 3 premiered. And I just saw it, but not the premiere, obviously. So, thoughts? Well, first, I do think that it was good. I have a positive reaction to it, so that's at least good. But usually I've got like hours and hours to plan these things out, but I do not right now have hours and hours. I'm just doing it right now, but that's how I wanted it to be. So I will say this. Positive, but I think, talking to Max and Larry, they were both positive. And I think they have already said, I don't know, I haven't seen anything, they've already said what I would say about it positively. I loved what they did with the Mandarin, actually, unlike a lot of people. I love how delightful Robert Downey Jr. is, as always. He's still delightful, if you're wondering. Action spectacular. I liked supporting cast did a good job. A few weren't really touched in, but overall it was really good. But I can't really put my thoughts into words right now because it's right after, and I have no idea what I'm even saying now. So I'm just going to instead take this time really quickly to say it does its job as the first two of Marvel's Phase 2 of the cinematic universe of Marvel, because it shows that they are going to be taking risks. Iron Man 3 was very risky. So many choices in that movie, okay, I mean, it was just kind of like, if you say so, Marvel, go for it. And most of them delivered, most of the choices. But it showed that, they're not going to be like, our first phase, all those movies and Avengers, they were very popular, so we can just repeat that. They're definitely mixing up. They're definitely changing what the heroes are. They're changing what the heroes are from the comics, from what I understand. Yeah, they are going into the future of their own universe, and this definitely puts their best foot forward, saying we're still going to make good movies, but this is going to be very different than Phase 1, and I think in a good way. I think better in this case means good. At least in this case, it meant good. So we'll see for what the rest of, Thor, Dark World, Captain America, Winter Soldier, all that, how, if they keep that mentality, but I think they will. And I think Avengers 2 will be very interesting to see how all those storylines, if they're as different as this one was, how they come together, and then if they continue this trend, Phase 3 is just going to be whatever, I don't even know. So I'm going to go. I'll be posting this. You'll see it on CinemAttack, interrupting final credits, I think. That's how we're going to do it. But yes, positive Iron Man 3. A lot of critics and especially audience were not a lot of critics. The audience was mixed. I don't really know why. I think most of them were comic book fans, but a friend of mine is a huge comic book nerd. He said this is the best Iron Man. He loved it. He recognized that they mixed a bit with the story. So if you're a comic book fan, go make your own judgment. I say you should judge for the film itself. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I went. Back to your regularly scheduled CinemAttack. Signing off.
My life has got to be like this. It's got to keep going on. It's the 1920s, and Nick Carraway is a Wall Street employee who lives right next door to Jay Gatsby, an enigmatic individual who throws colossal parties every weekend. On one such occasion, Nick is invited to the party and is asked by Gatsby to help him out in setting up a reunion with his old girlfriend, Daisy, who just happens to be Nick's cousin. And while it would be nice for that reunion to happen and everybody to be happy and everything, well, you and I both know that's not going to happen. I mean, this is American storytelling after all. The Great Gatsby follows its source material to a frightening degree. A lot, and I mean a lot, of dialogue is lifted directly from the book. Narration is a big part of how the story plays out, as told by Tobey Maguire, who plays Nick Carraway. His lines are word for word accurate from top to bottom, which I'm sure will please a lot of hardcore Gatsby fans. And speaking of accurate, the visual aesthetic of The Great Gatsby feels more true to the novel's original descriptive syntax than any prior adaptation. But more than that, this film is absolutely stunning, with its bright and beautiful color composition inundating every frame. Director Baz Luhrmann is known for the top-notch visuals in the movies he directs, and it really shows in Gatsby. The party scenes are especially dazzling, capturing the essence and mood of the 1920s and its decadent culture. While you'd expect music from the era to play during said parties, that's not actually the case. Each celebration uses non-diegetic contemporary tunes from artists like Jay-Z, Beyonce, and even Gautier. A lot of people have objected to this artistic decision, but I must object to their objections. Objection. The implementation of modern music in The Great Gatsby is quite brilliant. No, absolutely brilliant in every single way possible. This is hard news. One of Baz Luhrmann's major motifs in the films he directs is his idea of parallel iconography, showing something old, showing the same thing but new, and then putting them together and saying, oh, they're the same thing. Same thing. It works very well in Gatsby. The way the scenes are shot and cut conveys the message that celebration is a timeless and universal thing. This is something that Luhrmann does with every movie he directs, so it's nothing new, but it ironically fits so well despite the circumstances. And I couldn't go too long in this review without mentioning the sublime and supreme performance of Mr. Leonardo DiCaprio as Jay Gatsby. There's really no one else in Hollywood that can pull off the kind of externally charismatic and internally deranged character that Mr. Gatsby calls for, and yet Mr. DiCaprio pulls it off with flying colors. It's the best performance of the year so far and an absolute shoo-in for the Oscars. You know, provided that the Academy remembers that Leo Cap exists. Which they never, ever do. But there's always a trade-off when it comes to movies like The Great Gatsby. For example, with every Oscar-winning performance from Leo Cap, there's a cast that just doesn't hold up. Now, it's not just because Leo Cap is so magnificent as Mr. Gatsby, it's just, well, the rest of the cast thinks that this is some kind of extended soap opera that just happens to play in theaters. Really, the talent that actors like Carey Mulligan and Tobey Maguire have isn't just overshadowed by Mr. Gatsby, it's also just underwhelming on its own. For a dramatic retelling of one of the all-time greatest pieces of American literature, you need a strong cast, and while they hit it out of the damn park with Gatsby, the rest of the cast just doesn't hold up. They're not bad by any stretch, they just could have been so much better. And speaking of actors, let's talk about Toby. I have an issue with just how much narration is given throughout the course of the movie. I know this has good intentions, and I know that this is, how the book was told and everything, but I must point out that narration is not a good method of cinematic storytelling. It's just a lazy way of telling the audience what the character is thinking rather than showing it. While it works in some areas, there's just far too much of it to ignore. Now, they do give an explanation for why the narration is there, but I still think it was unnecessary. But the big issue with The Great Gatsby is something that lies within its writing. The screenplay tends to forget the underlying themes with the characters and the plot. For example, the way Daisy is presented in the novel is completely different from how she's presented in the movie, and not in a good way. In the novel, she's presented as this lightheaded and just very selfish woman that's no better than her racist, arrogant husband, Tom Buchanan. It's one of the things that makes Gatsby a tragic figure in the book, as he's going after someone that really isn't worth going after. In the movie though, she's seen as this damsel in distress who Gatsby must rescue from the evil Tom, which kind of misses the point entirely of what made Gatsby such a tragic figure, even though he's already presented as tragic in the movie. It's a positive but very shallow viewpoint of the love story that defines the book. That's not the only way the movie dumbs down the plot, but it's the most noticeable, and it tells me that Mr. Luhrmann really didn't think that we, the audience, would get the underlying symbolism that the book has. I don't think you give us enough credit, man. So after all the excitement and anticipation, The Great Gatsby is pretty good. It looks and sounds beautiful, with an absolutely show-stopping performance at its lead, but fails to really capture the undertones and symbolism that made the original such a classic. It's certainly enjoyable and does have a deep respect for the source material, so I'd still recommend it because I certainly had a good time watching it. It may not be as great as the title implies, but it's no slouch and a success on multiple levels. The Great Gatsby gets 4 orgastic green stars out of 5.
Of the CinemAttack Newsreel. On May 7th, 2013, a visual effects legend sadly left us without film studio in the sky. Ray Harryhausen, the man responsible for scenes from iconic films such as Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, and The Golden Voyage of Sinbad, passed away in London at the age of 92. Being so influential in the world of visual effects and stop-motion animation, it would be a huge missed opportunity if we didn't discuss Mr. Harryhausen and how truly amazing he was at what he loved. So this episode's newsreel is going to be in honor of him, as we discuss his life and his impact on the world and history of cinema. Harryhausen was born on June 29, 1920 as Raymond Frederick Harryhausen in Los Angeles, California. As a child, he always had a love for anything related to fantasy, and he soon specifically discovered the marvel that was prehistoric creatures. It started with 1925's The Lost World, where he witnessed the actuality of quote-unquote living dinosaurs. But his love for stop-motion animation was solidified after he viewed 1933's King Kong, when he began to inquire how these creatures moved and what went into the process of bringing them to life. After experimenting on his own with no success, he ended up finding an exhibition in Los Angeles that taught him all of the secrets behind the production of the films. Once he learned the secrets, he realized that he wanted to become part of the behind-the-scenes himself, and he met Willis O'Brien in 1886, who helped him improve upon his skills. But it wasn't until much later, 1946 exactly, when he decided to make his own short films. After the success with his first, Mother Goose Stories, in 1946, O'Brien asked Harryhausen if he wanted to work with him on a movie he was assigned to, and happily took the position. This film was 1949's Mighty Joe Young, which soon won the Best Special Effects Academy Award in 1950. Harryhausen's first major production he led was 1953's The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which went on to inspire the Godzilla series of films. Other films he is known for include the Sinbad trilogy, Clash of the Titans from 1981, and Jason and the Argonauts from 1963. Jason and the Argonauts specifically includes a scene involving 7 skeleton warriors, which took Harryhausen 3 months to film. Harryhausen is seen as one of the pioneers of visual effects. He received the esteemed Gordon E. Sawyer Award for his work at the 1992 Academy Awards, and has won many other awards for the work we previously mentioned. He was inducted into the Science Fiction Hall of Fame even in 2005. But more importantly, he has inspired multiple filmmakers, including George Lucas, Peter Jackson, Tim Burton, Guillermo del Toro, and Steven Spielberg, just to name out some miscellaneous names. James Cameron, in response to his death, had this to say: "I think all of us who are practitioners in the arts of science fiction and fantasy movies all feel that we are standing on the shoulders of a giant. If not for Ray's contribution to the collective dreamscape, we wouldn't be who we are." Whether you appreciated his work, are a dire fan, or have never heard of him until now, Harryhausen is and forever will be cemented as one of the masters of stop-motion animation and visual effects. Everyone here at the CinemAttack Newsreel wants to thank Harryhausen for all of his hard work and dedication to the film industry. He will be missed, but never forgotten. This has been the CinemAttack Newsreel.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the 6th iteration of Recommendation Domination. With summer upon us and the DVD season coming to an end, I felt it would be best to change up the format just a little bit. So from now until the end of summer, we'll be giving you 2 movies from the past, 1 movie from the present, and 2 for the future. So, with that change in mind, my friends, let's get started. While watching Iron Man 3, there was one movie I just could not get out of my head. From the very first scene, I could not get this movie out of my head no matter how hard I tried. And then it all made sense when I watched the entire thing. I was thinking of The Incredibles. The Incredibles is one of my favorite superhero movies because it taps into the culture of comic books in the 60s and infuses it with a more timeless setting to create a world where the entire concept of superheroes is a regular idea. Its dialogue is funny for all ages, the imaginative environments are awe-inspiring, and its technique of deconstructing the societal conception of the superhero and using its purest form to its advantage is, without question, genius. I mean, when you step back and take a look at the big picture, The Incredibles is essentially Watchmen for kids, and I mean that in the best way possible. So The Great Gatsby is about the man who has everything and nothing. When I think of characters that have that kind of dilemma, I think of Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal of Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network. This is in my top 10 all-time favorites for many, many reasons. David Fincher's direction is excellent, Aaron Sorkin's snappy dialogue suits the characters, the cast is great, the lighting and cinematography give meaning to every scene, and the score is hands down the greatest I've ever heard. But more than that, all of the aforementioned elements make a movie comprised of talking, and more talking, compelling to a very high degree. It's an amazing film that takes something that's boring in theory and molds it into something you can't look away from. As for the single home media recommendation, the vault is opening once again for the Blu-ray release of one of my all-time favorite films from the 1960s, The Great Escape. This is an adventure in every sense of the word, a sprawling tale about a group of Union soldiers imprisoned at a German camp during World War II. Their escape attempts make the film so enjoyable, and the pacing is excellent, keeping your attention for its entire 3-hour duration. Yeah, it's really long, but it doesn't lose focus or overstay its welcome, which I feel is the film's biggest accomplishment. If nothing else, The Great Escape was a huge influence on the work of this guy, so you may want to watch it just for its historical significance. Now we slide on over to the summertime and talk about 2 movies coming out this season. As if we haven't done enough of that on this show. First up is a thriller with an interesting premise. So, it's 2022 and America is doing great. Unemployment is down, crime's at an all-time low, and everybody's happy. But there's just one little thing that's a little bit questionable in this new country. Every year, the government suspends all laws for 12 hours. Hospitals close down, police go missing, and no one is safe. It's called The Purge, and it serves as a kind of stress ball for the American people. From what we've seen in the trailer, the movie looks to be very unique, and will most likely have some underlying political message. I guess we'll see what happens to normal people when all bets are off when The Purge opens on June 7th. Finally, there was no contest as to what movie I was gonna end this segment on. Its concept is simple. Giant robots versus giant monsters. Oh yeah, we're talking about Pacific Rim. This is about as basic as you can get, and I am all for it. While I can certainly enjoy smart and serious action movies, I need my smart and silly ones as well. Pacific Rim definitely looks to feed my urges, as the action looks to be over the top and fantastic. Director Guillermo del Toro is, to put it simply, a movie nerd in the same vein as Tarantino and Lucas. And I think that perspective will work really well in what he calls his love letter to giant monster movies. Hopefully we'll find just as much to love when Pacific Rim hits theaters on July 12th. Alright, that was fun, wasn't it? It's a different format to be sure, but I think it'll help us out, especially with these long summer months coming up. But until next time, my friends, thanks for watching, and remember, the best movies you'll ever see, you may not have seen just yet. And with that, my friends, CinemAttack Episode 6 has come to an end. I'd like to give a very special shout out to Larry for putting in his maximum amount of effort as usual, and to the people out there who watch our show every time it's on. The only reason we do this is for you guys. Alrighty then, my friends, that is all for me. I'm still Side Smash.
And I'm Flapperdoodle.
And thanks again for tuning into CinemAttack. We'll see you in a week and a half as we venture
into the darkness.
Don't forget that there's a separate video up that gives you both Larry and I's thoughts on the spoilerific parts of Iron Man 3. If you didn't already know, all 3 of us have our separate channels that you can check out by clicking on the annotations. Larry has more video game stuff like Let's Plays and such, so check them out for your gaming fix. If you want to visit Sean's page, you can do that, I guess. I don't really know why you'd want to support a criminal, though. And finally, there's my channel, which is pretty alright, I guess. I just posted a short film that I wrote and directed and edited and filmed and produced and whatever, and it's pretty interesting. You know, if you'd be so kind as to check it out, I'd very much appreciate it. But whatever you do, just click something, okay?